You share your victories before they solidify. You announce your plans before they take root. You celebrate your progress with people who smile, but secretly calculate how to use that information against you. Deep down, you know this. You feel the weight of eyes that watch without cheering, that listen without supporting, that remember everything while contributing nothing. I am Solomon, and I have witnessed empires rise and fall not through open warfare, but through the silent poison of those who observe from the shadows. The most dangerous enemy is not the one who attacks you directly. It is the one who sits quietly, taking notes on your dreams, mapping your vulnerabilities, waiting for the perfect moment to strike when you are most exposed. You have been feeding your own obstacles. Every story you tell, every plan you reveal, every small victory you broadcast becomes ammunition in the hands of those who wear the mask of friendship while harboring the heart of competition. They are not your allies. They are not even honest enemies. They are parasites of your energy, feeding off your openness while giving nothing in return. This is not about becoming cold or isolated. This is about becoming wise. This is about transforming from someone who seeks validation through exposure into someone who commands respect through results. The person you are becoming does not need to announce every move. They do not need to justify every decision. They simply act, achieve, and let their success speak louder than their words ever could. Today, you choose between remaining an open book that anyone can read and manipulate, or becoming a mystery that only reveals itself through undeniable accomplishments. The wealthy understand this secret. The wise have mastered this art. The truly powerful move in silence until their impact becomes impossible to ignore. If you are ready to stop feeding those who consume your energy without nourishing your growth, if you are prepared to become the person who surprises the world with results instead of promises, then this message has found you at exactly the right moment. Subscribe now, because what I am about to reveal will change not just how you move through the world, but how the world responds to you. Number 1. Not every obstacle presents itself as opposition. You have learned to recognize the enemy who stands before you with sword drawn. You know how to defend yourself against direct attacks, harsh criticism, and open confrontation. But what about the enemy who sits beside you at dinner, who asks about your plans with a smile, who remembers every detail of your struggles and victories? What about those who never oppose you directly, but seem to know exactly when and where to place the smallest stone that will make you stumble? I am Solomon, and throughout my reign, I discovered a truth that changed how I viewed every person in my court. The most dangerous obstacles in your path are not the ones that announce themselves as opposition. They are the ones that disguise themselves as neutrality, as casual interest, as harmless curiosity. They study you with the patience of a hunter, learning your patterns, your weaknesses, your moments of vulnerability. And when the time is right, they use this knowledge not to destroy you openly, but to influence your decisions, to plant seeds of doubt, to redirect your energy toward paths that lead nowhere. Think of a river that encounters a mountain. The mountain does not hide its opposition. It stands firm, forcing the water to find another way. But what about the silent erosion that happens grain by grain, so slowly that the mountain never notices until it begins to crumble? This is the nature of hidden obstacles. They do not block your path. They reshape it so subtly that you believe you are still moving forward, when in reality, you are moving in circles. There was once a merchant in my kingdom who shared his trade routes with everyone who asked. He was generous with his knowledge, believing that abundance would multiply if shared. Yet, season after season, his profits decreased while his competitors grew stronger. He could not understand why his proven strategies no longer worked for him. One day, a wise counselor revealed the truth. Every person he had trusted with his secrets had used that information not to build their own wealth, but to anticipate his movements and create obstacles along his path. They would arrive at markets just before him with better prices. They would spread rumors about his goods in cities he planned to visit. They had turned his openness into a weapon against him. The merchant learned that not every ear that listens is friendly, and not every smile that receives your words wishes you well. This is the moment when you must awaken to an uncomfortable truth. The people who ask the most questions about your progress may be the least interested in your success. The ones who remember every detail of your plans may be using that information to ensure those plans face unexpected complications. The obstacle is not always the closed door. Sometimes it is the person who stands beside the door, taking notes on when you come and go. Your transformation begins when you understand that silence is not secrecy. It is strategy. You do not owe anyone an explanation of your moves. You do not need to justify your decisions to those who contribute nothing to your journey. The wise king does not announce his military strategies to his court. He plans in the shadows and strikes when victory is certain. Your life, your dreams, your path to wealth and purpose deserve the same level of protection. Begin today to observe who truly celebrates your victories and who simply collects information about them. Notice who asks questions that help you grow and who asks questions that make you question yourself. There is a difference between genuine interest and disguised surveillance. Your energy is precious. Your plans are sacred. Your dreams deserve to grow in fertile ground, not in soil contaminated by the hidden intentions of those who smile while they sabotage. The greatest obstacle you will ever face may be sitting across from you right now, nodding as you speak, remembering everything you say, and already planning how to use it against you. Number 2. The cost of exposing yourself without discretion. You tell your story to anyone who will listen. You share your struggles, your victories, your plans, and your fears with the same generosity you would offer water to a thirsty stranger. You believe that openness is strength, that vulnerability is courage. That transparency will attract the right people into your life. But deep in your heart, you have begun to notice something disturbing. The more you share, the more complicated your life becomes. The more you expose your inner world, the more it seems to be influenced by external opinions that pull you in directions you never intended to go. I have observed this pattern for thousands of years, through countless generations of seekers, builders, and dreamers. There is a price to pay for exposing yourself without discretion, and that price is the gradual loss of your own voice in the symphony of your life. When you share your deepest thoughts and most precious plans with everyone, you invite everyone to become a composer in the orchestra of your destiny. Soon, the music you are creating is no longer your own. It becomes a confused mixture of your original vision and the opinions, fears, and limitations of every person who has had access to your inner world. Imagine a sculptor working on a masterpiece. With each chisel strike, the form becomes clearer, more beautiful, more aligned with the artist's vision. But what if, with each strike, a crowd of observers began shouting suggestions? Make the nose smaller, the arms should be longer, why not add more decoration here? This doesn't look like what I expected. Soon, the sculptor would lose connection with his original inspiration. His hands would begin to move not according to his artistic vision, but according to the collective voice of those watching. The masterpiece would become a compromise, a diluted reflection of what could have been a work of genius. I remember a young builder who came to my court with plans for a magnificent temple. His design was innovative, beautiful, inspired by a vision he claimed came to him in dreams. But he was so excited about his creation that he shared every detail with every craftsman, every merchant, every visitor who showed interest. Each person offered suggestions, modifications, improvements. wanting to please everyone and incorporate all the wisdom offered to him. The young builder changed his plans again and again. When construction finally began, the building that emerged bore no resemblance to his original vision. It was functional but uninspiring, practical but without soul. The builder had lost his masterpiece in his eagerness to please everyone who had access to it. This is the hidden cost of indiscriminate exposure. Every person you allow into your inner world carries with them their own fears, limitations, and agenda. When you share your dreams with them, you are not just sharing information. You are inviting their internal world to merge with yours. Their doubts become your doubts. Their limitations become your boundaries. Their fears become the voice in your head that tells you to be more realistic, more practical, more careful. The turning point comes when you realize that your inner world is not a public space. Your dreams, your plans, your deepest aspirations are not community property. They are the sacred seeds of your future, and seeds need protection to germinate properly. They need the right soil, the right amount of light, the right environment. They do not need the opinions of every passerby who happens to notice them growing. True strength lies not in exposing everything, but in choosing carefully what to reveal and to whom. Wisdom is not about building walls around your heart, but about installing doors with locks, and being very selective about who receives the keys. Your story is precious, your struggles have meaning, your victories are sacred. But not everyone deserves access to them, and not everyone who asks for access has your best interests at heart. Start today to practice the art of selective sharing. Before you open your heart to someone, ask yourself, does this person contribute to my growth, or do they simply consume my energy? When they know my struggles, do they offer genuine support, or do they use that information to make me feel smaller? When they hear about my dreams, do they help me build them? Or do they plant seeds of doubt that make me question my own vision? Your life is not a reality show that everyone has the right to watch and comment on. It is a masterpiece in progress, and masterpieces require both inspiration and protection to reach their full potential. Number 3. Solomon's view on prudence. You have been taught that speaking is power, that those who talk the most are the ones who lead, that visibility equals influence. You have been conditioned to believe that if you are not constantly explaining your actions, justifying your decisions, and sharing your strategies, you will be forgotten, overlooked, or left behind. But I tell you this truth that has guided kings and built empires. The wise observe more than they speak, and those who understand true power know that the greatest strength often moves in silence. Prudence is not the absence of courage. It is not fear disguised as wisdom, nor is it cowardice dressed in the clothes of strategy. Prudence is the deep understanding that timing is everything, that the right action taken too early can become the wrong action, and that the perfect plan revealed before its time can become the perfect plan for someone else to steal or destroy. True prudence is the wisdom to know when to speak and when to remain silent, when to act and when to wait, when to reveal and when to protect. Throughout my reign, I learned that every great achievement begins not with noise, but with silence. Every empire, every fortune, every transformation starts in the quiet chambers of the mind, where ideas are born, tested, refined, and strengthened before they ever see the light of day. The seed does not announce its intention to become a tree. It simply begins to grow beneath the surface, developing roots strong enough to support the magnificence it will one day become. Consider the master craftsman who works in his workshop. He does not invite crowds to watch every hammer stroke, every measurement, every adjustment he makes to his creation. He works in focused solitude, allowing his skill and vision to guide each movement without the interference of external opinions or the pressure of premature judgment. Only when his work is complete, when it reflects the fullness of his capability and intention, Does he present it to the world? The result speaks louder than any words could, and its impact is immediate and undeniable. I once knew a merchant who understood this principle better than anyone in my kingdom. While his competitors spent their time in the markets boasting about their plans, announcing their next ventures, and seeking approval for their strategies, this merchant worked in silence. He studied trade routes, built relationships with suppliers, negotiated contracts, and accumulated resources. His competitors mocked his quietness, interpreting his silence as lack of ambition or absence of significant activity. But when the trading season began, this silent merchant emerged with a network so well established, resources so abundant, and strategies so refined that he dominated every market he entered. His competitors, who had spent their time talking about their plans, found themselves scrambling to execute ideas they had announced too early and developed too little. This is the power of prudence. It protects your strategies while they mature. It gives your ideas time to develop fully before facing the harsh light of external judgment. It allows you to move from a position of strength rather than hope, from certainty rather than experimentation. When you announce your plans too early, you invite interference, competition, and sabotage. When you reveal your strategies before they are solid, you give others the opportunity to copy, improve upon, or undermine your efforts. The transformation begins when you understand that your success does not depend on convincing others of your potential. It depends on developing that potential in the protected space of your own focused effort until it becomes undeniable reality. The wise do not seek approval for their plans. They seek results from their actions. They do not explain their strategies to those who did not contribute to their development. They demonstrate their effectiveness through outcomes that speak for themselves. Begin to practice the sacred art of strategic silence. Protect your ideas while they grow. Work on your plans without feeling the need to justify them to others. Allow your strategies to mature in the fertile ground of your own mind and effort, free from the contaminating influence of premature exposure. When the time comes to reveal what you have built, let the revelation be a surprise, not just to your competitors, but to those who underestimated you because they could not see what you were building in silence. The tree that grows slowly and steadily in protected soil eventually towers over those that sprouted quickly in exposed ground. Your success deserves the same patient cultivation and strategic protection. Number 4. Silent envy and disguised curiosity. You have felt it, that strange energy that comes from certain people when you share good news. They smile, but their eyes don't participate in the smile. They congratulate you, but their words carry a weight that feels more like judgment than celebration. They ask detailed questions about your success, not because they want to learn from you, but because they need to understand how someone like you could achieve what they have not. This is the face of silent envy, and it surrounds you more than you realize. Silent envy is perhaps the most toxic force you will encounter on your path to greatness. Unlike open opposition, which at least has the honesty of declaring its intentions, silent envy wears the mask of friendship while harboring the heart of resentment. It studies your victories not to celebrate them, but to diminish them. It analyzes your strategies not to learn from them, but to find flaws in them. It observes your progress not to support it, but to discover ways to slow it down or redirect it toward failure. The envious person cannot bear to see others succeed, because every external success reminds them of their own internal failure. They cannot celebrate your achievements, because your achievements make their lack of achievement painfully visible. So they develop sophisticated strategies to undermine your progress without appearing to be obstacles. They ask questions designed to make you doubt your own decisions. They offer advice that sounds helpful, but leads you away from effective actions. They share your plans with others under the guise of seeking support for you, but actually hoping that someone will find reasons why your plans won't work. I have witnessed this pattern countless times throughout the centuries. There was a young merchant in my kingdom who had developed an innovative method for preserving goods during long journeys. His success grew rapidly, and soon everyone in the market was asking him about his techniques. Flattered by the attention, he shared his knowledge generously, believing that rising tides lift all ships. But he began to notice something strange. The more he explained his methods, the more obstacles he encountered. Suppliers who had been reliable became unreliable. Routes that had been profitable became problematic. Customers who had been loyal began to question the quality of his goods. It took him months to realize that his most persistent questioners had been using his openness against him, sharing his information with his competitors, and creating deliberate interference in his business operations. The young merchant learned a crucial lesson. Not every question is genuine interest, and not every compliment comes without comparison. Those who observe too much may root against you while pretending to support you. The person who remembers every detail of your struggles may be hoping to see you struggle again. The one who asks the most questions about your success may be the least interested in seeing you succeed. This is the moment of awakening. You begin to understand that not everyone who appears interested in your journey actually wants to see you reach your destination. Some people follow your progress like spectators at a race, not because they want to see you win, but because they want to see if you will stumble. They disguise their envy as curiosity, their resentment as concern, their hope for your failure as realistic advice. The wise learn to recognize the signs of disguised envy. They notice who asks questions that build up and who asks questions that tear down. They observe who celebrates their victories without needing to compare them to their own achievements, and who cannot mention their success without immediately talking about their own struggles. They distinguish between those who genuinely want to learn from their experience and those who want to find reasons why their experience doesn't count, doesn't matter, or won't last. Your transformation begins when you stop feeding the envy of others with detailed explanations of your success. You do not owe anyone a breakdown of how you achieved what you achieved. You do not need to justify your good fortune to those who resent it. Your energy is too precious to waste on convincing people to celebrate you when their nature is to compete with you. Start protecting your victories from the toxic curiosity of the envious. Share your successes with those who truly celebrate them, not with those who need to analyze them to find flaws. Surround yourself with people who are inspired by your growth, not threatened by it. Remember that the right people will ask questions that help you grow even more, while the wrong people will ask questions that make you question whether you deserve what you have achieved. Silent envy is a parasite that feeds on your openness and grows stronger with every detail you provide. Starve it with strategic silence and watch how much easier your path becomes. Number 5. How to identify who should have access. You open your heart to everyone who shows interest. You share your dreams with anyone who asks. You give your time, your energy, your deepest thoughts to people simply because they are present, because they seem friendly, because they claim to care. But deep inside, you have begun to feel drained, confused, pulled in too many directions by too many voices. You start to question whether your natural generosity is actually working against you, whether your open nature is attracting the wrong kind of attention from the wrong kind of people. The truth is that not everyone deserves access to your inner world, and learning to distinguish between those who should be welcomed and those who should be politely kept at a distance is one of the most crucial skills you can develop. This is not about becoming cold or closed off. This is about becoming wise enough to recognize the difference between people who contribute to your growth and people who consume your energy without giving anything meaningful in return. There are three types of people in your life, and each should be treated differently. First, there are allies. These are the people who actively contribute to your progress, who offer genuine support, who celebrate your victories without needing to compare them to their own, who provide counsel that actually helps you grow, who invest their time and energy in seeing you succeed. Allies are rare, and they should be treasured, trusted, and given access to your deepest thoughts and most important plans. Second, there are spectators. These people are not necessarily harmful, but they are not helpful either. They watch your life like a movie, interested in the drama but not invested in the outcome. They consume your stories, your energy, your time, but they do not contribute anything meaningful to your journey. Spectators should be treated with kindness, but not given access to your vulnerable moments or your strategic thinking. They can know what you choose to share publicly, but they should not be invited into your private world. Third, there are enemies. These are people who, whether openly or secretly, hope to see you fail. They may disguise themselves as friends or even as spectators, but their true nature reveals itself over time. They ask questions designed to create doubt. They offer advice that leads nowhere. They remember your failures more clearly than your successes. They find ways to complicate what should be simple. Enemies should be recognized, avoided when possible, and given no access to information that could be used against you. I remember a young architect who came to work on one of my building projects. He was talented and ambitious, but he struggled to distinguish between these three types of people in his life. He treated everyone the same, sharing his innovative designs with anyone who showed interest, seeking advice from everyone who offered it, and trying to maintain relationships with people who clearly did not wish him well. His progress was slow and frustrating because he was constantly managing the opinions, the interference, and the sabotage of people who should never have been given access to his professional world. I taught him a simple but profound lesson. I told him to observe not what people said about supporting him, but what they actually did to support him. Words are cheap and easy to fake. Actions require investment, effort, and genuine intention. I taught him to notice who celebrated his achievements without immediately talking about their own, who offered help without expecting something in return, who remembered his successes as clearly as his struggles, who made his life easier rather than more complicated. The transformation in his work and his life was remarkable. When he began to share his designs only with those who had proven themselves as allies, his projects moved forward smoothly. When he stopped seeking advice from spectators who had no real expertise or investment in his success, his decision-making became clearer and more confident. When he stopped trying to win over enemies who were never going to support him anyway, his energy became focused and powerful. This is your turning point. You must learn to audit the relationships in your life with the same care you would audit your finances. Ask yourself, does this person contribute more to my life than they take from it? When I succeed, do they genuinely celebrate, or do they find ways to diminish my achievement? When I struggle, do they offer real help, or do they simply observe my difficulty? When I share my plans, do they help me refine them, or do they plant seeds of doubt that make me question my own vision? Begin today to practice selective access. Give your time, your energy, your vulnerable moments, and your strategic thinking only to those who have earned the right to receive them through their consistent demonstration of genuine support. Be kind to everyone, but be wise about whom you trust with your dreams. Your inner world is not a public space, and not everyone who wants access to it deserves to have it. The people who truly belong in your life will prove it not through their words, but through their actions, not through their promises, but through their consistency, not through their interest in your story, but through their investment in your success. Number 6. Strategies to grow protected. You have been living your life in full display, believing that openness equals authenticity and that sharing everything equals connection. But you have begun to notice that the more you expose of your inner world, the more complicated your external world becomes. The more you share your plans, the more obstacles appear in their path. The more you reveal your strategies, the more competition you face. You are starting to understand that perhaps there is wisdom in protecting your growth the way a gardener protects young plants from harsh weather and hungry animals. Growing protected does not mean growing in isolation. It means creating the right conditions for your development. Conditions that shield your progress from interference, while still allowing it to receive the nourishment it needs. This is about becoming strategically selective with your energy, your information, and your vulnerability. It is about understanding that some of your most important work happens in silence, away from the eyes and opinions of those who are not invested in your success. The first strategy for protected growth is to reduce the exposure of your plans while they are still forming. Your ideas are like seeds. In their early stages, they are fragile and vulnerable. Too much exposure to harsh elements can kill them before they have a chance to take root. When you announce your plans too early, you invite interference, competition, and sabotage. You also invite the well-meaning but misguided advice of people who do not understand your vision and who project their own limitations onto your possibilities. Instead, learn to work in silence during the critical early phases of any project or goal. Use this time to refine your strategy, to build your resources, to develop your skills, and to create the foundation that will make your success inevitable. Only when your plans are solid, your preparation is complete, and your first steps have already proven successful, should you consider sharing your strategy with others. The second strategy is to share only with those who build. This requires you to develop the wisdom to distinguish between people who will contribute constructively to your vision and people who will either do nothing or actively work against it. Those who build are people who offer resources, skills, connections, or insights that actually move your project forward. They invest their time and energy in seeing you succeed. They ask questions that help you strengthen your approach, not questions that make you doubt your direction. I once observed a brilliant merchant who understood this principle perfectly. When he was developing a new trade route, he shared his plans only with 3 people: a financier who could provide capital, a navigator who knew the territories he planned to cross, and a supplier who could provide the goods he intended to trade. Each person contributed something essential to the success of his venture. He did not share his plans with other merchants who might become competitors, with family members who might worry and discourage him, or with acquaintances who might spread the information to people who could interfere with his success. When his venture succeeded, it appeared to happen overnight, but it was actually the result of careful planning and selective collaboration. The third strategy is to use silence as a natural filter. When you stop announcing every move you make, when you stop explaining every decision you consider, when you stop seeking approval for every action you take, something remarkable happens. The people who were only interested in your business for entertainment purposes, for gossip, or for finding ways to interfere will naturally lose interest and drift away. The people who are genuinely invested in your success will remain close, offering support without needing to know every detail of your strategy. Silence becomes a powerful tool for clarity. When you are not constantly explaining yourself to others, you can hear your own inner voice more clearly. When you are not seeking validation from external sources, you can trust your own judgment more completely. When you are not managing the opinions and emotions of everyone who has access to your plans, you can focus your energy on executing those plans effectively. This is not about becoming secretive or distrustful. This is about becoming wise. It is about understanding that your energy is finite and precious, that your plans deserve protection while they develop, and that your success does not require the approval or understanding of everyone who knows you. Some of your most important work will happen in private, and some of your greatest achievements will surprise people because they never saw them coming. Begin today to implement these strategies in your life. Before you share your next big idea, ask yourself, will this person contribute to making this idea reality, or will they simply consume my energy discussing it? Before you explain your latest decision, consider, do I need approval for this choice, or am I seeking validation that will actually weaken my confidence in my own judgment? Before you announce your next goal, think, will sharing this information help me achieve it? Or will it create obstacles and interference that make success harder to attain? Protected growth is not slower growth. It is more focused, more efficient, more sustainable growth. It is growth that reaches its full potential because it was never corrupted by the interference of those who were not invested in its success. Number 7. When growth becomes inevitable. You have spent years fighting for every inch of progress, struggling against obstacles that seemed to appear from nowhere, pushing through resistance that felt as thick as concrete. You have battled not just external challenges, but internal doubts fed by the voices of those who questioned your every move, who analyzed your every decision, who made you second-guess your own instincts at every turn. But now something is changing. You are beginning to experience what it feels like when growth becomes not just possible, not just likely, but inevitable. Inevitable growth happens when you have finally learned to protect your energy from those who would drain it, when you have developed the wisdom to distinguish between allies and spectators, when you have mastered the art of moving in strategic silence while others waste their energy in pointless noise. It is the natural result of focused effort that is no longer interrupted by interference, of clear vision that is no longer clouded by unsolicited opinions, of consistent action that is no longer sabotaged by those who were never truly supporting you. When growth becomes inevitable, you will notice that your progress accelerates in ways that surprise even you. Projects that once dragged on for months now complete themselves in weeks. Opportunities that once felt elusive now appear naturally. Resources that once seemed scarce now flow to you with ease. This is not magic, and it is not luck. It is the compound effect of all your protected effort finally being allowed to build upon itself without constant interruption and redirection. The interference that once complicated your every move begins to disappear not because the world has changed, but because you have changed how you interact with the world. When you stop announcing your plans to those who would sabotage them, when you stop seeking advice from those who cannot provide it, when you stop trying to convince those who will never support you, the energy you once spent managing all these unnecessary interactions becomes available for productive action. The focus that was once scattered among too many voices becomes concentrated on the work that actually matters. I have watched this transformation occur countless times throughout history. There was once a young craftsman in my kingdom who spent the first years of his career struggling with inconsistent results, constant setbacks and frustrating delays. He was talented and hardworking, but his progress was slow because he had made the mistake of involving too many people in his creative process. He sought feedback from everyone, incorporated suggestions from anyone who offered them, and tried to please every potential customer who showed interest in his work. His craft suffered because it was being influenced by too many different visions, and his business suffered because his energy was constantly diverted from production to explanation. But gradually, this craftsman learned the principles of protected growth. He began working in his shop with the door closed, developing his techniques without the input of casual observers. He stopped explaining his artistic choices to people who had no expertise in his craft. He focused on mastering his skills rather than managing everyone's opinion of his skills. The transformation was remarkable. Within a single season, his work improved dramatically. His productivity increased significantly, and his reputation grew to the point where customers sought him out rather than the other way around. This is what happens when less interference generates more progress. Your natural abilities, no longer suppressed by the weight of external expectations and interference, can finally express themselves fully. Your intuition, no longer drowned out by the noise of unsolicited advice, can guide you toward the right decisions. Your energy, no longer scattered among too many competing priorities, can focus on the actions that produce real results. When your focus remains intact, when your vision is no longer distorted by the projections of others, when your confidence is no longer undermined by those who mistake their limitations for universal truths, you begin to operate from a place of inner authority that naturally attracts success. You stop second-guessing yourself because you are no longer surrounded by people who make you question your own judgment. You stop struggling upstream because you are no longer fighting against currents created by those who were never meant to be part of your journey. The result arrives without warning because you are no longer announcing its approach to those who would try to prevent it. Your success surprises people not because it came from nowhere, but because they were no longer given access to watch it being built. The foundation was laid in privacy, the structure was assembled in silence, and the completion was revealed only when it was too solid to be undermined or destroyed. This is the ultimate liberation, the moment when your growth becomes self-sustaining, when your progress generates its own momentum, when your success builds upon itself without requiring constant external validation or approval. You no longer need to convince anyone of your potential because your results speak for themselves. You no longer need to defend your choices because their effectiveness is undeniable. You no longer need to explain your vision because it has become reality. This is not the end of your journey, but the beginning of a new phase where growth happens naturally, where obstacles dissolve rather than multiply, where progress becomes as inevitable as the sunrise. You have learned to create the conditions that allow excellence to flourish. And now excellence flows from you like water from a pure spring, clear and unstoppable. There comes a moment in every journey when you realize that the path itself has been teaching you. Every person who watched you in silence, every obstacle disguised as curiosity, every interference masked as concern was preparing you for this understanding. You were not just learning to grow. You were learning to become ungovernable by forces that seek to control what they cannot create. The eagle does not announce its flight path to the hunters below. It simply soars, using currents invisible to those bound to the earth, reaching heights that make their arrows irrelevant. Your transformation follows the same principle. As you master the art of strategic silence, as you learn to protect what is sacred while it develops, you begin to move in dimensions that those who would limit you cannot access. The watchers will always be there, but their power over your progress diminishes with every choice you make to honor your own timing, to trust your own judgment, to move according to your own inner compass, rather than the expectations of those who observe from the sidelines. They can watch, but they can no longer direct. They can speculate, but they can no longer interfere. They can remember your past, but they cannot predict or prevent your future. This understanding changes everything. When you no longer need external validation to know you are on the right path. When you no longer require permission to pursue what calls to your soul. When you no longer explain yourself to those who were never meant to understand you. You step into a realm where growth becomes as natural as breathing. If you recognize yourself in these truths, If you feel the stirring of this deeper wisdom awakening within you, then you are ready to continue this journey. Subscribe to walk further along this path of protected progress, where each insight builds upon the last, and where your evolution becomes inevitable rather than hopeful. The wise know that some victories are meant to be lived, not announced.